This upcoming 25-26 Premier League season might be the best one yet, with it seeming to be the most exciting and unpredictable campaign in a long time. Can the Premier League champions Liverpool go back-to-back and winning the title? Can Manchester City bounce back from their poor season? Can Arsenal finally win the league title? Okay, let's be serious, that's not happening. Can the seemingly reborn Manchester United pull off a few upsets and challenge at the top? Or what about the Europa League champions Tottenham? Or the FIFA Club World Cup champions Chelsea? Or the Carabao Cup champions Newcastle? Or the shocking FA Cup champions Crystal Palace? Can one of these sides pull off another miracle run in the Prem? Only time will tell, but every club seems fresh after the summer break and reloaded after the transfer window, and this only adds to the excitement of this new Premier League season. So with all this taken into account, will the 25-26 season actually be one of the greatest Premier League campaigns of all time? Well, let's take a look at why this seems to be the case. Now, I think one of the main reasons why so many more football fans are hyped for this Premier League season is how the 24-25 one ended. It became predictable, stale, and obvious. Liverpool ended up winning the league title at the end of April, putting an end to an already pretty non-existent title race a month before the campaign concluded at the end of May. And most football fans knew that Liverpool was gonna win the Premier League title for a few months up to the win against Spurs. It was just us Liverpool fans who tried to deny the obvious, because we had been traumatized by Manchester City over the years. How they used to win the league title by 1 point every time against us had me scared shitless that something similar was gonna happen again. But not only that, the relegation battle had been confirmed for a long time too. Everybody and their mother knew that the three recently promoted teams were gonna be the ones that went straight back down. And we were all right. Even the top 4 race for the most part was decided too. Everybody knew that Manchester City and Arsenal would secure a top 4 spot. And towards the last couple of months, Chelsea became the obvious pick too, with them bouncing back from a poor run of form earlier on in the campaign. The only question on the last match day was who was going to claim that 5th Champions League spot, and it just ended up being Newcastle. That was the only somewhat exciting part towards the end of the Premier League season. Like, come on, bro, that's it?
Are you serious right now, bro?
This isn't me just yapping about this too. This drop off in the Premier League is proven by statistics. According to the Times, both Sky Sports and TT Sports saw a drop in Premier League viewership by 10% in the final 6 weeks of the season, possibly even before that too. And this decrease was partly attributed to the lack of a close title race or a compelling relegation battle. So don't just take my word for it. Take the stats' word for it, because the numbers don't lie. However, there is some light at the end of the tunnel, because with a less entertaining end to the last Premier League campaign, this one is getting even more excitement on the back of that. And it deserves it, because this 25-26 season is set to be an all-time classic. That's because the teams all around the Premier League have strengthened heavily over the summer transfer window, and spent smartly to fix their issues for the most part, and are ready to bounce back in the 25-26 season, with every team having a serious claim to the throne. And due to that, we might get one of the tightest and fiercest title races the Premier League has seen in a few years. Let's start this off by talking about my club first, Liverpool, the Premier League champions of the last campaign, who benefited from every club having some sort of a drop-off. However, even with us being crowned champions, there were still some issues that needed resolving in the squad, and Arne Slot was well aware of that. And with the owner John W. Henry being more than happy to open his war chest of funds for him, because we literally spent nothing the year before, the squad has been revamped tremendously. One of the first issues that needed fixing was needing more attackers to rely on other than Mohamed Salah. Now, Salah had a generational 24-25 season, with him getting 34 goals and 23 assists in 52 games. I mean, he got more goal contributions than games played in the hardest league in the world for the most part, without even going that far in the Champions League. And plus, he ended up winning the Golden Boot and the Playmaker Award in the same season again. Bro deserves the Ballon d'Or, I'm being so serious. But anyways, with Salah signing a 2-year contract extension, he chose to stay to help the club even more. But it's true that we can't only rely on one attacker to drag us over the line like he did last year. And with the departures of Luis Diaz at Bayern Munich, Ben Doak who left to Bournemouth, Joe Kwanzaa who took to Bayer Leverkusen, Darwin Nunez who left to Al Hilal, Kelleher who wanted to be the #1 goalkeeper at a club, so he went to Brentford, Tyler Morton who went to Olympique Lyon, and Trent Alexander-Arnold, the scouts on the team, leaving to Real Madrid, it became clear that we had no choice but to reimburse and revamp the squad heavily, which we did. For another goalkeeper, we already had that issue resolved with us signing Marmardashvili last summer, who would arrive this year from Valencia, and he's a star for Georgia as we all know. Then we signed Jeremy Frimpong for 40 million euros from Bayer Leverkusen thanks to his release clause, an immediate Trent replacement. Milos Kerkez left Bournemouth to join Liverpool for 46.9 million euros. That addresses our left back issues from the last year. And then with us struggling to break down low blocks in the second half of the 24-25 campaign, we signed one of the best creative midfielders to help us out with that in Florian Wirtz for 125 million euros. Huge money for a world-class player, but it's definitely worth it because this guy is amazing to watch and largely efficient on the pitch. Then we also ended up signing Hugo Ekitike too for 80 or 90 million euros from Eintracht Frankfurt, a tall and versatile #9 to help us with the goals. But then we also signed the 18-year-old super talent Italian center back from Parma, Giovanni Leoni, for around 35 to 40 million. And we're still in talks to sign Alexander Isak from Newcastle too, who remains adamant on wanting to leave Newcastle to join Liverpool at the time we're recording this video. So as you can see, we lost quite a few players, but we brought in a ton of top talents in too to help us out with this upcoming 25-26 season and future campaigns as well. And of course, it takes some of the pressure off Mo Salah, who has been relied on heavily in the past couple of years, especially when our old #9 Darwin Nunez used to miss sitters like this. Like, come on, bro. Next up, it's time to talk about Liverpool's rival in the past decade for the Premier League title. It's Manchester City. But before we talk about them, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it and it means a lot, so thank you. And also if you guys can, follow my Twitter and my Instagram, both at Nabuto, if you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall just to get to know you more. And also make sure to join the Discord server, link in the description, and also follow me on Twitch. Live streams may be coming soon. So if you want to, feel free to hit me up with that follow. Thank you. Now last year might have been the worst year under Pep Guardiola ever for the citizens, and that's because other than the Community Shield that they barely won over Manchester United in a penalty shootout, Manchester City went trophyless. That's right, for a team that spends hundreds of millions of pounds every single transfer window, they couldn't win a single trophy in the 24-25 campaign. However, it seems like this might be the last time City go trophyless under Pep Guardiola, because they've strengthened the squad heavily over this past summer too. I mean, they had no choice. They had to reinvest in their team. They usually do though, because they have over $1 bajillion and have 115 charges that I feel like are never gonna actually hit them. But you know what I mean. You see, last season, Man City's midfield wasn't the same as years before, with the Ballon d'Or winner of last year, Rodri, being out injured due to a serious ACL injury, Kevin De Bruyne not being the same as he once was, and not being able to match the intensity of the Premier League, Godwin also not being the same player he once was after returning from Barcelona, etc. Plus, when you add the fact that their defense was lackluster, with Ederson not being the most reliable anymore, injuries running rampant through the squad like to Nathan Ake, Akanji at times, John Stones, Kyle Walker, not because he's injured though, because he's simply just washed, etc. City had to strengthen over the summer, and like I said, they did. They let go of Kyle Walker, who went to Burnley, Jack Grealish, who's one of the biggest flops in Premier League history, went on a loan deal to Everton, beat the race, went to Girona, and then the big one, Kevin De Bruyne, who ended up joining the Italian champions Napoli. And with these departures, the well-oiled machine of Manchester City, pun intended, brought in the talented James Trafford, a new goalkeeper for 31.2 million euros from Burnley, with even reports Donnarumma can also arrive to City as a new goalkeeper, Ryan Cherki, the talented winger slash midfielder who will now wear the number 10 at City for 36.5 million euros from Lyon, Ryan Nouri in the left back position from Wolves for 36.8 million euros, and then Tijani Reinders, one of the most underrated midfielders in the world in my opinion, coming in from AC Milan to replace Godwin's role of running late into the box, driving the ball forward, etc. for 55 million euros. And with Rodri returning from his ACL injury, even though it's still yet to be determined whether he's the same Rodri from before, and Phil Foden probably not having two back-to-back awful seasons, City are looking like that they can challenge for the title once again. But City are not only going to go against Liverpool for the Premier League title, but also against a team that we're going to preview next on this list, Arsenal Football Club. Now in the last 2 to 3 years, Arsenal have come mighty close to winning the Premier League, finishing second place, only falling behind Manchester City on a couple of occasions, and Liverpool in the last season. They keep getting close, but not close enough, often dropping points in games that they shouldn't be towards the tail end of the season. And with Mikel Arteta's managerial seat starting to get warmer and warmer, this might be his last chance to bring in some silverware for the Gooners. And that's why Arsenal have gone all out on the transfer window this summer to put them in a great position to win the Premier League title for the first time since the 2000s. One of the main issues that Arsenal has had over the past few years is that they don't have a clinical finisher up top. Gabriel Jesus isn't that type of player, plus he had a ton of injury issues, and neither is Kai Havertz, who also had his serious injury issues as well. So in an effort to try and bring in a clinical forward, instead of playing Mikel Merino as a false 9, Arsenal finally got the man that they desperately wanted, and they signed Victor Gyökeres from Sporting for 65.8 million euros. Now I'm not quite sure how he's going to perform, especially coming from the Portuguese league. I'm still slightly traumatized from Darwin Núñez joining us from Benfica, but Arsenal believe that Gyökeres is a missing piece they need to take them over the line, so there aren't many excuses left. However, we do gotta talk about that AFTV video about Gyökeres, bro, because what the hell was even this video, man?
What the hell is even that?
Then another issue that Arsenal needed to resolve was to find a good player that could play on the wing that could replace Bukayo Saka just in case he goes down or needs a little bit of rest. And this happened last season. Bukayo Saka got injured, and this caused the Gunners to drop a lot of points. So Arsenal brought in Donny Madueke from Chelsea for 56 million euros, a left-footed right winger just like Saka that could play on the left or right if needed. Then with Declan Rice liking to go forward more than a traditional 6 does, Arsenal needed another player back there. And with Thomas Partey leaving on a free, thank goodness, get that motherfucker out of here, they signed Martin Zubimendi, a man who probably regrets not joining Liverpool last season, for 70 million euros. Then they signed another one too in Christian Norgard as well, just in case, you feel me? But Arsenal were still not done, because losing Gabriel at the back for a long period of time hurt their form as well last season. So this time, they brought in another center back in Christian Mosquera from Valencia for 15 million euros. An underrated signing if you ask me. Now the only thing Arsenal need to resolve for the future though is that left wing position, because they cannot go another season with Martinelli as their starting winger, bro. Let's just keep it 100. I think they should go for Rodrigo if City don't capitalize on that, but we'll see. Overall though, Arsenal looking pretty ready for this Premier League season, and only time will tell whether they will win the Premier League title or not. What's my bet though? No chance. But enough about the Gooners. It's time to talk about another London side whose rebuild over the past few years is looking like it's coming into fruition. It's Chelsea. Now Chelsea in the first half of the 24-25 campaign were looking like they could be in the title race, but in the second half of the season, they quickly fell off, and this stopped any real chance of them winning the Premier League title. However, they ended up winning other things that showed me and other football fans that Chelsea's rebuild is looking really promising. They ended up winning the Conference League, as they should have. They were the best team in the competition by a comfortable margin, but they also ended up winning the FIFA Club World Cup, doing so by beating the best team in the world by far last season, PSG 3-0 in the final. You know, the team that just won the Champions League by slapping up Inter Milan 5-0. Yeah, they lost very comprehensively to this Chelsea side, and this showed me that Chelsea are close to looking like the rebuild is being complete. However, there were a couple of issues that needed resolving in this transfer window, and with their infinite money under Todd Bowley, they resolved those pretty swiftly. Shout out Taylor Swift though, that Love Story song is still a banger. Anyways, it was clear that the Blues need to bolster up their attack, especially with Cole Palmer going cold, not in a good way, in the second half of the season, only scoring like a couple of times in the last 4 to 5 months. They definitely needed another winger and some more strikers to help him out with the goal contributions, especially with Jadon Sancho leaving, João Felix leaving to Al Nassr, and Nicholas Jackson just kind of being ass cheeks. So with that, they brought in a couple of talented wingers. One is the talented Brazilian winger from Palmeiras, Estevão, for 34 million euros, who scored against Chelsea at the Club World Cup, by the way. And then they also signed the left winger Jamie Barrow-Giddens from Borussia Dortmund for 56 million euros to resolve that side of the pitch, with him being technically gifted and a fast winger to stretch defenses and create goal-scoring opportunities. Then for the striker position, Chelsea didn't just bring in one reinforcement, they brought in two, with them initially signing Liam Delap from Ipswich Town for 35.5 million euros, but then brought in their most likely starter in João Pedro for 63.7 million euros, who scored 3 goals in the 2 games he played for Chelsea at the Club World Cup to help them lift the title. Additionally, with Levi Colwill going down with an ACL injury, Chelsea sought in to bring another center back, and they did just that, with the talented Dutch left/center back Joel Hato from Ajax for 44.18 million euros. Now with these new additions, Chelsea's squad throughout every position seems well reinforced, balanced, and ready to go for this Premier League season. I could definitely see them going far and pulling off some crazy things, even in the Champions League. All they need to really worry about is whether they're going to face burnout after playing in the Club World Cup after an already long season, but only time will tell whether this will actually happen or not. But now it's time to talk about a club that's been facing some dark times in recent years. Probably the biggest club in England statistically. It's actually true, even though I am a Liverpool fan. It's Manchester United. Now it's no secret that Man United have seen some dark days in recent times. For me personally though, I've been enjoying it. Most of my friends are United fans, so seeing them depressed low-key makes me happy. But even though it hurts me to say this, the way that Manchester United have been moving in the transfer window just shows how they're still seen as the biggest club in England, because the reinforcements they brought in this summer have been extraordinary, especially for a club that just lost the Europa League final to Tottenham, costing them a Champions League spot, and even finished 15th place in the Premier League. Like bro, that's disgraceful. Anyways, the entire Man United squad needed revamping. There wasn't just one position that needed fixing, it's all of them. So Ruben Amorim's United went ahead and strengthened that left back position of theirs, signing Diego Leon from Paraguay. But most importantly, they strengthened the attack, with them realizing that they don't have enough threat on the wing/upper midfield that could directly go for goal and be clinical enough to finish. So they brought in some major reinforcements for that position, signing Matthias Cunha, who plays as an attacking midfield role/second striker, mainly for 74.2 million euros from Wolves. And after his amazing season with Wolverhampton, you can expect him to carry that same level of attacking threat at United. And then they went ahead and signed Brian Mbeumo from Brentford too for 75 million euros, who just loves to cut in with that magnificent right foot of his and score bangers to help his team out. I'm sure he'll do that at United. Then with it being obvious that Xerxes isn't at that level yet, and Højlund is just nowhere near it, you might as well just get rid of him. United splashed heavily on a new threatening forward up top that just knows how to finish the ball into the back of the net. It's Benjamin Šeško for 76.5 million euros. So for the attack, the rebuild is looking pretty promising. And although at the center back/center defensive mid role/goalkeeping role, the rebuild hasn't really happened there yet, you can't say that they're not trying, bro. With them trying desperately to sign Carlos Baleba from Brighton, even though they won't get him this summer, but he's definitely one to keep an eye out on for future transfer windows. But overall, the start of United's real rebuild is looking really promising. And with them playing 1 game a week compared to the 9 other Premier League teams that are playing in Europe, they could make a sneaky run to the top positions in the Premier League. But now let's talk about another traditional Big 6 club that's also having a promising rebuild of their own. It's Tottenham Hotspur. Now if you thought United's Premier League season was bad last year, peep Tottenham's, because they were even worse, with them finishing 70th place, 1 position above the relegation zone. That's actually absurd. However, what makes Tottenham's overall season not as bad as Manchester United's is the fact that they ended up winning the Europa League on their head tops, ending their own trophy drought, and this also helped them qualify to the Champions League for the 25-26 season. But it became clear that if Tottenham just stuck with their old players and their old manager for this upcoming season, they weren't going to bounce back as they should. So Tottenham sacked Ange Postecoglou and brought in a genius who carried Brentford on the sidelines for so many years, Thomas Frank, and they started to bring in reinforcements to help them do well next season. Well, this season, you know what I mean. They only lost Heung-min Son over the summer, who left after 10 years to join LAFC, and this is probably the right decision because it was clear that he wasn't the same player from before and he was getting old, and him leaving on a high of winning the Europa League was a good way to go out. Then instead, Tottenham signed Matthijs Tel permanently for 35 million euros, Kevin Danso permanently for 25 million euros, João Palhinha on a loan deal from Bayern Munich, talented Japanese center back Kota Takai for 5.8 million euros, another center back talent Luka Vuskovic for 11 million euros, and then the forefront of the new signings this window, Mohamed Kudus, for 63.8 million euros from West Ham. Then they were close to signing Morgan Gibbs White from Nottingham too, getting the here we go from Fabrizio and everything. But somehow Nottingham got the deal not to happen, and Gibbs White signed an extension with Forest reluctantly seemed like, but we'll keep it pushing. Additionally, they're still in the market for other players, like Ezzy from Crystal Palace, and even Sevilla from Manchester City. So Tottenham are cooking the transfer window to try and make sure that they cook on the pitch for this upcoming 25-26 season. But now it's time to move on from the traditional Big Six, because in the modern era, the Big Six is only just a reference to those 6 clubs I mentioned before, because the Premier League nowadays has become much more nuanced than that, with many other good clubs outside that traditional Big Six looking to make an impression in this 25-26 season. We saw this last year too, when Newcastle ended their 60 or something year trophy drought by winning the Carabao Cup, and Crystal Palace winning the FA Cup for the first time ever. The Premier League is becoming much more competitive all around, and it's only right that we take a look at some of these clubs pretty briefly. Starting off with Aston Villa, they went far in the Champions League, making it to the quarterfinals before barely losing to PSG, the later champions of the competition. Additionally, they've kept most of their squad intact, apart from losing loan signs like Marco Asensio and Marcus Rashford, and recently Jacob Ramsey. But they did bring in some new players, like Gassar for example. So Villa are still looking like a pretty good side, especially with Unai Emery still being there. Then over to Newcastle, yeah, everybody's making fun of them because they're unable to sign any good strikers because they have zero pull, like missing out on João Pedro, Benjamin Šeško, Hugo Ekitike, etc., as they need to find a replacement for Isak, who's adamant on not playing for the Magpies anymore. They're still largely a very good team with a solid midfield, and with a talented manager like Eddie Howe, don't sleep on them. Then there's Brighton Albion, a team who has quickly been recognized as a club that scouts players for peanuts from the middle of nowhere and sells them for 100 million euros. Their scouting department is top notch, and with them having a good squad ahead of this campaign, they're looking quite scary again and look like they can push for a spot in Europe. Of course, there's Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, Everton are looking good, etc. So yeah, the Premier League is definitely the best league in the world. And with all these clubs looking very strong ahead of the new season, whether that's for surviving relegation like Sunderland aims to do with all their new signings, or making top 4, or winning the league title like Liverpool, City, Arsenal, etc. want to do, one thing is for sure, this Premier League season is going to be one for the history books. Well, hopefully. Knowing my reputation, I might have just jinxed this season. My fault. Anyways, how excited are you guys for this new Premier League season? Let me know down in the comments. I personally am so excited that I'm moving to the other side of the country. If you want to know where I'm going in lifetime, you should probably follow the Instagram. Link is in the description. So yeah, this background right here, yeah, you're probably never going to see it again. So say goodbye while you can. Anyways, now, if you enjoyed the video, please remember to subscribe. I really appreciate it. And please be sure to follow my Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and join the Discord community. All the links are on my YouTube description. And last but not least, if you want to learn about where every player from that Morocco 2022 World Cup squad is at today in their careers, you definitely want to check out this video right here. You won't regret it.